What is reality? I think that one's reality is a result of your intention and your attention. Intention is your focus on carrying out an action and usually involves forethought and planning. Attention is the behavioral and cognitive process of selectively concentrating on a certain piece of information, whether subjective or objective, while ignoring almost all other perceivable information. It's from this process in our brain that our reality is formed. We think reality is what we can apportion through the limited instruments of the senses, but reality is of course far beyond that. Bats and dolphins use echolocation to move through their environment. Their brains are designed to process that data. They have the correct instruments to do so. With spiritual data, we don't have the correct instruments to receive it, and thus we live primarily in the realm of the five human senses. Anything we describe through science, we are describing through the prism of the five limited senses. Our eyes can only see between infrared and ultraviolet, but we know these things are real even though we cannot directly see them. Our ears can only hear within a certain decibel range. We can't hear the sound of a dog whistle. We can't hear any high-pitched frequency sounds, yet we accept that these frequencies exist. Isn't it likely then that there are other versions of reality moving through the universe? Just because we can't perceive them yet doesn't mean that they don't exist and are therefore not real or worthy of investigation. The reality is we have one planet. We know other planets exist now, but we have no method to travel to them. There is a certain amount of people on the planet. The exact figure is increasing year on year. There is a certain amount of resources on the planet, none of which are going to last forever. This is the fundamental flaw with capitalism, that it seems to think that there is infinite profit to be made from finite resources, which simply isn't the case. We need systems in place that are going to acknowledge these realities. We do not need, nor should we accept systems that benefit only 1% of the population. All people need to have and have the right to have access to the resources. You can't hold them prisoner for your own profits. You can't lie to the people so that those in power continue to augment their own power while normal people are exploited. We should demand systems that get the resources to all the people on the planet. They have a right to access it. Any system that's detrimental to the people or the planet, we should get rid of it. We are allowed to do that. Not only is it our duty to each other, it's our duty to the human race. It's our duty to our children's children and all the generations that come after. We should demand change and ignore the protests of anyone who objects. We've got to let go of temporary and transient ideas like individualism. We need to begin thinking as a species, as the human race. I sometimes wonder if the human race hasn't already split into two subspecies, the woke and the non-woke. Religions encode us with the idea that individualism is more important than paganism, that which integrally relates us to the earth, for we are bound to it. We cannot leave. We need to understand that we are indefatigably related to the environment that we live in. We should live in service to our environment because the self is a selfish delusion, one we can no longer afford. While I don't enthuse religion, I do support spirituality and any spiritual practice that moves an individual to change their behavior and the society in which they live. It's through spiritual practice that I have become aware of my own impermanence. As I approach 55 years of age, I realize my life is 2/3 over and I am not ready to leave yet. I have become aware of my own irrelevance, the fact that I am just an ordinary person struggling to come to terms with their life. I am still scarred from events that happened when I was a child. I don't like that feeling in my stomach that people like me are like being treated badly. I don't want that feeling that I and people like me are being exploited. When I was young, I was sold a lie that if I worked hard, I could retire at 65 with a state pension which would reward my taking part in the system and would allow me to enjoy my golden years. The age of retirement keeps rising. The state pension is already leaving people in poverty when they retire. They have no money to socialize and are lonely and, in some cases, malnourished. We are becoming drones whose only purpose to the society in which we live is to work until we die. People need to lead spiritual lives. All of us need it. It's very necessary for a healthy mind. I am not calling for universal religious practice. I am calling for the fundamental right to express spiritual ideas and to have access to material and places to explore the human spirit. We need to access the infinite consciousness that's available to all people but is delineated. Consciousness doesn't have clear-cut boundaries because each human mind is different. Consciousness is an amorphous and expanding entity. I think if we allow our consciousness to be prohibited by and prescribed by our senses, if we live only in the realm of the five senses, we are doing ourselves such a disservice that we may be stalling the next step in human evolution. If we can break free, there are ways to break the bonds that chain us to the earth. We can then temporarily at least receive a taste of the infinite. We need to recognize at some point that within ourselves there is an infinite capacity for connection to all things. I think that humans are basically good creatures. Whenever there is a disaster or an accident, our immediate impulses are to help one another. Anything which galvanizes people and brings us together is worth pursuing. If it points us towards the better aspects of our nature and helps us overcome things like fear and our basic human desires, it should become absolutely essential. Society wants you to be talking about pop culture. They want you to be talking the latest fad in reality TV. They don't want you to be talking about political corruption and environmental disasters. They want you to shut your mouths and watch whatever tripe they decide to serve you. In the words of Michael Franti and Ron Otse, TV is mechanized politics, remote control over the masses, co-sponsored by Environmentally Safe Gases. Watch for the PBS special. It's the perpetuation of the two-party system where image takes precedence over wisdom, where soundbite politics are served to the fast food culture, where straight teeth in your mouth are more important than the words that come out of it. They know because they have been part of the system. I used to believe it, but no more. I am awake now. Living in a system like this leaves us with some sort of itchy irritability, some yearning and dissatisfaction. This might be because we are not looking in the right direction for the solution. We should look within ourselves and within our minds and hearts where there is a limitless capacity for bliss through a connection to higher things. Our spirituality is one of these things which we have long left to rot in the mire of society's addiction to TV. We began, I guess in the later 70s, to define ourselves by what we watched on TV, by the characters and images we witnessed. But you cannot define yourself in reference to other external coordinates. You have to do this by looking internally. One has to define yourself through a relationship with a higher entity. It might help if you think of yourself as some manifestation of some higher thing, some higher being. People often scoff and say that's not real, which brings us back to that quandary of what we can and cannot see. You can't see atoms, can you? And you can't see the forces that hold atoms together, but you know that they are real, don't you? We can't understand it with our rational minds, but we feel it intuitively. It is the same in this case. I think it's one of the great sadnesses of modern life that because of our disenfranchisement and our disillusionment with religion that we don't have access to these higher ideas. We need ways in such a secular world of accessing beautiful principles that might make us happier at a time when we feel disillusioned with the economy, concerned about the ecology, distrustful of politicians, and we don't trust the news we see on TV. As humans, we have fulfilled our potential. We have not evolved for the last 10,000 years. What you see is all that we have achieved. To evolve, we must become enlightened so we can access the next realm of consciousness necessary for our evolution. We elect to ignore the spiritual, and it causes a deficit for ourselves and for our culture and our planet. We too easily identify ourselves as individuals. That idea is fortified daily through the anchor of primal desires which tie us to the self. We ignore that fact that we are here for such a short time, that basically we are all the same as one another, we are connected to each other, and that we have a collective responsibility for the planet. God is not something you use to feel better than someone or is a reason to have a war with them. It's that which is beneath and beyond our identity as humans. God is defined by the realm of the senses and the material self, which is transitory. Beneath that there is a divine self in all of us that is connected to all living things. I choose to know God because I think that there is the recognition that there is divine beauty in all of us, and if we prioritize that over our selfish material needs, then we will naturally create a culture that is more in harmony with our planet. I think it's difficult these days. It's difficult to find an access to spirituality, but we are by our nature spiritual beings. If we don't have access to spirituality, we suffer as individuals and society suffers. I don't think we should propagate the idea that famous people are special because it makes ordinary people think that their lives are no good. I don't think we should be living in that superficial paradigm. We believe too much in our identity and our individualism. All these things are transient. What's important are the things that we all share: unity and love, togetherness. We need cultural narratives that eschew these ideas in favor of more negative human traits. Greed, selfishness, or lust. When these ideas are promoted, we will exist in opposition to each other. This leaves us open to being exploited by corporations that prey on these negative aspects of humanity. The line between good and evil exists not between cultures, religions, or creeds, but through every human heart. I recognize in myself the capacity for lustfulness, for greed, for egotism. I would prefer a culture that didn't celebrate, exacerbate, and stimulate the most negative aspects of our culture, inculcate them, and reward them financially. Happiness cannot be sustained forever. It's transient, it comes and goes. I am happy when I am being nice to people. Love, compassion, and tolerance are the most crucial and important things humans need. Everyone should know that.